So here's all my Ellie knives, or rather the evolution of what eventually became a reasonable replica of an Ellie knife from The Last of Us. There were a couple of early attempts that ended up not looking too good, but that's okay because they were just test beds to begin with. I started with Amazon, really. They used to sell Switchblades, and it popped up in my recommended items, and I was just like, hey, it's 20 bucks. Sure, I'll buy a Switchblade. And while I was waiting for it, since it took a month to get to me from China, I started looking at movie, video game Switchblades to see if there's something I could replicate with it. And lo, I found Ellie's Switchblade from The Last of Us, and really, that's the thing that jump-started my Last of Us obsession. Was it all started from Ellie's Switchblade. So one thing that I noticed was there was a little bit of an inconsistency with the in-game version versus the cosplay guide version, and Switchblades generally come in an 11-inch variety and a 9-inch variety and a bunch of different other sizes, but 11-inch and 9-inch are generally standard, which it kind of jived with what I was seeing as how the cosplay guide version seemed to be based off of the 9-inch variety. Basically, I just took the cosplay guide picture and shrunk it down to the size of like the knife, which is about 9.5, or actually in this case it's 8 3/4 inches, just to see if it would match up scale wise. And sure enough, it was pretty much spot on as far as, lining up the blade, lining up the bolster, lining up the button and the locking mechanism. So from the cosplay guide version, it was pretty clear that it was based off of the 9-inch variety. And likewise, the in-game version pretty squarely lined up with the 11-inch variety. And again, this is a little bit off. This is about 10.5 inches, but either way, when you hold it like this, when you hold it like this, or however Ellie holds it in the game, it lines up size-wise with what you're seeing in the game. I basically had, a decision to make. Do I want to do an 11-inch version for the in-game version, or do I want to do the 9-inch version, which was the cosplay guide? And me being me, I was like, well, why can't I do both? So I ended up doing both of them. So I was trying to decide how to actually make a wood handle with an ivory inlay, as the cosplay guide says, because that part is at least consistent through the game versus the cosplay guide. But I wasn't entirely sure on how to do that, and so I started looking around. I found a guy on YouTube. His name is Video Game Junk, and he actually went to the process of buying a wood and an ivory handle and combining them. He sent it off to a professional knife maker, and his version is actually really, really nice, but it still had like cracks, and the professional knife maker wasn't able to pull it off without cracking the handle scales. And if a professional wasn't able to do that, then I sure as shit wasn't going to be able to do that either. So I figured the next best thing for me to do would be to just paint it, or in this case, cut out the outline and then paint around it. And I started with this one. Obviously it's the wrong knife, but this was just kind of a test bed to see if I was going to be able to pull it off. So I cut out a piece of paper, glued it down, and more or less traced it out with a knife. I don't know if I actually used a knife to trace this one out. I think this one was just directly using the micro engraver. Either way, I was able to trace it out and then use the micro engraver to more or less color in the space outside of the outline, so it kind of had a wood grain, but at the same time it also showed me the parts that I would be painting. And sure enough, once I actually painted it, this is just straight acrylic paint, brown and black. It actually looked pretty darn good, and I was able to keep good separation between the inlay and the wood portion. I should mention that the patina is actually Sculpt Nouveau stainless black, and it was really easy to apply. You just spray it on and then let it sit, and then you rinse it off, and bam, you got some nice patina weathering and stuff. And I did that for a couple of the other ones too. The next three that I did were these three. This one I got from a place called Direct Knife Sales. They're a U.S. distributor for Switchblades. Same thing with this one. These are actually the same knife in different colors. This is actually a Frank Beltrame, which I'll get to later. The difference between a proper 11-inch and this particular one is that this was actually a little bit wider, which means it actually sells the scale a little bit better. Let's compare it to the proper 11-inch. You can see that the proper 11-inch is actually a lot thinner than this one is. And because of that, it really kind of accentuates the stretched out nature of the handle. The space between it, you can really tell that it's a lot longer than, say, this one is versus this one. Because of the fact that it's wider, it doesn't look as stretched out as the proper 11-inch ones. So when I stretched out the cosplay guide version to be 10.5 inches, it lined up a lot better. You can tell this one is not ivory. This one is actually pearl. They didn't actually have this particular knife in an ivory. You can tell it didn't look as good, especially with the swirly lines and stuff. Even more so on the back, it actually kind of messes with the lines of the inlay. But I counted this one as a success, so yay. The next one that I did was this one. This one was the one that the first one that I got on Amazon. It had a rainbow blade. I sanded all that stuff off. It actually had a lot chunkier scale. It was a lot thicker and blockier, kind of like this is. So when I first got it, I slimmed it down by hitting it with a band file, and this one actually ended up being a lot cleaner, specifically with the lines and stuff, minus the little scratch right there. That was a boo-boo. You can see that's actually a little bit different. This is the same scale. This is what the chunky handle looked like before I actually slimmed it down. This one I'll talk about in a second. The blade, you can see, is a lot more triangular. This one is a little bit more leaf-shaped versus this one, which is more triangular. And the one in the cosplay guide version actually is a lot more triangular shaped blade. So again, all the more reason why this one was a lot more better. Yeah, we'll say a lot more better. This one actually came as wood, and I wasn't actually going to, cut it off and try to inlay any ivory and stuff, but what I did try to do was cut out and try to fill in, specifically with some paint, some resin, just to see if I could actually get something in there, and it was a miserable failure. It's a little too pointy at the ends here. This one kind of reminds me of paint chipping off of an old house or an old boat. Unfortunately, it just looks like crap. Hey, I had already gotten the good-looking version, so whatever. So for a while, these were the three that I had completed, and you can see in the earlier video that these are the ones that were actually hung up on the stand. A little while later, I was like, I want a clean version, kind of like Video Game Junk has a nice clean version. So I went and I got a black one of this one. I figured I'd try to do the painting of the inlay again, kind of like I did this one, but this time, basically what I did was just cover the switch and the lock and spray paint on some white epoxy. And I don't know if you can tell, but this is really, really bright, shiny white epoxy. And it kind of gives you the impression that this is what it would have looked like when, Anna first bought it. The difference was that I actually printed out the inlay. I scaled it properly to this size and then printed it out and pretty much glued it on so that the shape is exactly the shape of the one from the cosplay guide. It still looks like old, beat up wood, but again, that's kind of what I was going for. This is now my, nice, pretty, shiny new one. It's because of this one that I was able to tackle this one. It says Frank B, Italy. You can't see that. Trust me, that's what it says though. You can definitely tell that there is a difference in quality when you get this one versus those. The blade is a hell of a lot thicker. The general sturdiness is, again, a lot tougher than those are. The spring is just a beast, and you can tell when you open it that there is a lot of momentum that springs open, and again, it's just a noticeably higher quality than some of the other ones that will remain nameless. Actually, I don't think any of those are branded anyway, so it doesn't matter. No one's bragging about them, apparently. Because of the fact that it was so thin, I never thought that I would have the courage to actually, cut it out. And honestly, I didn't think that it would actually work because of the fact that it was so slim. But again, because of that one, I guess I just needed the extra practice. I took the inlay, and this time I had to scrunch it down a little bit so that I was able to fit on the thinner frame. But sure enough, I was able to pull it off so that I have this nice quality Switchblade that actually has the proper pinout, by the way. The pinouts for the earlier versions and stuff like that, they're not quite the same. I actually had just to make a divot right there to make it look like there was the one pin right there. Now I have this really nice shiny one, and it's got the proper inlay, so yay. One thing to note about this one also is it's not as triangular, and it's actually kind of a leaf shape. I don't know if you can see, but it flares out and then comes back towards the point. And that is a little bit more reminiscent of the actual in-game version. I don't know if you can see, I'll put a picture up. The in-game version actually shows a leaf-shaped blade. It's the one that doesn't have the S-curve bolsters, it just has the straight bolsters and stuff. But you can actually tell that there is a leaf shape to the blade, and because of that, I think that this was, you know, a little bit unintentionally accurate, if you want to call it that. But either way, it's one of those things that was kind of like a nice happy accident that was unexpected but very welcome. That's it, really. They look like they're all straight, but if you pan up, they're actually all facing outward. They're kind of flayed out. So now I think I'm going to display these three on the rack, just because this one was the more or less definitive cosplay guide version, and then this one was my nice, pretty expensive one, and then this one was the nice, pretty 11-inch in-game version. So these will be my guys on the shelf. Sorry, other three. So yeah, these are the Ellie Switchblades. I just got to open them one more time. Yeah. Okay, see you later. But I got a wood version also, but it's actually just a comedic travesty of a knife. I mean, this thing is so terrible, and you have to really push it to get it, and you're basically compressing the frame while you're doing that. But at the same time, it's crooked. It doesn't even come out straight, and it's totally crooked, and it's just so terrible that I kind of have to love it. So yeah.